So, hi, Trevor. Thank you for coming.
Hello.
Lovely to have you in the shed, the office of the virtual shed. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Yeah, nice looking shed.
Great, isn't it? It's got a roof. What can I say? So, I was hoping we could have a chat a bit about your poetry, how you came to poetry. I know it's not been a straightforward transition into it from a young lad. And just talk around, maybe hear some of your poems as well to give people an idea of who you are and what you like. I do remember that you didn't come to the shed to be published. I remember sitting in Jam Cafe in Hockley in Nottingham and saying, "So Trevor, when are you going to bring out a book?"
Yeah, well, there was a bit more of a backstory than that. I've been in London at Department of Health all day in my suit, and it was Jim Hall's book launch. And I got back and sat in the car park, and it'd been really stinking hot day. And I thought, oh, do I want to go? And then, I'm tired. And I thought, no, come on, Jim invited me. You've got to go. And when I got in, there was only one seat in the whole place, and that was next to you. And I don't think we really knew each other, did we?
Right.
And you said something like, "Oh, I've seen you perform. You're not a total poetry numpty," or something to that effect. And that's how we got chatting in the first place. And then you said, "Have you ever thought of getting published?" And I hadn't really, but I'd just not long done Southall Festival with DIY Poets. And one of the audience came up to me afterwards and said, "Can I buy your book?" And I said, I haven't got a book. So the seed was there, and you kind of watered it, I think.
Right. That's how I like it. That's how I like it. It's interesting to find out how people have come to the shed, because there's quite a few different journeys. So your first book was Outside a Heart, which I was just saying I can't find my copy. There it is. Lovely, lovely, well-worn copy with the lovely image on the back as well. That seems a long time ago. And I feel like you quite a change when you brought your second book out, Salt Flow.
Yeah.
It feels like quite a shift, really, in you, and it's certainly in your writing.
Yeah, I think Outside the Heart was. I hadn't been writing that long, only a couple of years, and I've been doing the open mic stuff, which I think helps. Reading stuff out loud that actually helps you develop it. So I felt Outside the Heart was a bit of a mishmash of different ideas, different things, different styles, and Leanne Moden helped put that together. And I think without her help, it would have been an even bigger mishmash than it was. But still, proud to have it out and liked it. And I still go back to it now. This. I don't know if people can see this. I've altered so much. I've rewritten stuff. And in the back, which is a poem called Diagnosis, I rewrote it so much I had to retype it and stick it in. Which just shows, I think, how much a poem's never done, is it? It's never finished.
No, I think that's one of the things that people worry about certainly before I set Big White Shed up, I did worry about what happens if you change what you publish. And now I think, well, it doesn't matter. That was then. Don't hold yourself back because you think it's not ready, it's ready. I know we've had conversations where it's got to be the best it can be at that moment. But I think your first collection is very much like my collection. If I hadn't got that out, I wouldn't have moved on to write other stuff.
Yeah, and there's a confidence boost, I think. In some ways, you may not be a better poet than you were before it was published, but there's something psychologically that happened. I got asked to do collaborations which I don't know if I would have been asked to do if I didn't have something out there. It sold reasonably well, which again, that makes you feel good, doesn't it? That people actually want to give you money for something. So yeah, but things don't stay still. And I remember on Salt Flow that there was a lot of toing and froing, because I thought poems were finished, and when because I got feedback from you, but I also put it out for peer review of 4 other local poets, all published, and some were better than I thought they were, and some were nowhere near as finished as I thought they were. That's just the way of it, isn't it? That's the way it goes. Yeah.
You mentioned something a minute ago about you hadn't been writing for long. So tell me about how you got to write poetry then.
I'd always wanted to write, and I mentioned it in my 20-minute careers interview when I was 15 or 16 in school, and they said, well, we don't think that's for you. And this being in the 70s, you kind of followed what if teacher said something, then most of the time you thought, oh, they must be right. So it was years later when I was actually with my daughter on the last day of summer holiday before she went back to school, went in the library in town, because she thankfully liked libraries, and Derby City Poets were actually in there doing a session. So I sat in, listened, went up for a chat afterwards, and they said, oh, come along. And it's a crit group, so you have to take something that you've written, and I hadn't actually written anything, so I had to write something, and I wrote the thing that ended up in Salt Flow about my granddad's war experiences. That started there that would have been, 2015 or thereabouts. So it took 5 years before it actually reached paper. And then it just grew. It was a bit scary. I started to do the open mics and things. It's the old, once you turn the tap on, you can't turn it off. And it seemed to be a form that suited me, because I'd written in work, I'd done committee reports, I'd done strategies. So I was used to writing and used to editing, but poetry as a form seemed to suit the way that I think. And I think I just fell on it, but it's just happenstance.
Well, I'm glad you fell on it. It just seems such a shame that you didn't write for all those years, or write poetry, find poetry for all those years.
Yeah, but that means there's a kind of not a minefield. There's a minefield. There's just this field to be kind of ploughed of memories.
Yeah.
It would have been nice to do it at the time, but I've got things I can kind of recall and write about. So that helps, I think.
Would you share a poem with us?
Yeah. Any requests? Well, I'll do the one that I ended up having to. It was a minor rewrite in a sense, but my pencil marks just got, so when I was on stage I couldn't actually read my own work. So it's called Diagnosis, and it was a reaction to something that happened about 6-7 years ago. So Diagnosis. Hunted to the vanishing point of razor-edged nerve fatigue, backed into dead ends by the snarling bloodhounds of sense, pinioned against the wounding juts of emphysema-inducing cultures, I seized one last chance saloon shot at the cell-bullying pathogens, and committed to come out swinging, for no other reason than to agitate the particles binding me. And this time, just maybe this time, I will make it to the river.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I can't remember now. That's been one of my favourites. And now I can't remember how you've changed it.
Oh, so, just bits and pieces, and I think I think I've done another version since for Henry Normal's virtual tour, where I did 5 or 6 poems instead of doing the libraries with him. the most up to date, I think, is on the Inspire website.
Oh, lovely. Well, with you reading it or as a...
Yeah, just reading it to camera. Yeah, everybody who was supposed to do the tour with Henry. So that's 12 Nottingham poets. All did a series of videos that are on the Inspire Library's website.
You've done a fair bit with Henry Normal, haven't you? You seem like you're... Didn't you interview him and that sort of a friendship?
Yeah, for Miggy Angel's online mag, which I can't remember the name of. I've all got it here. The Arsonist. Yeah. And Burning, is it Burning House Press? Yeah, I went down to, I met Henry in Poetry Festival. I went down to his house in Brighton, which was nice. It's a grand house because he's the lad's done well. But it was funny because we're the same age, got the same glasses and haircut. And as we were chatting, found out that we actually went to school about a mile apart in Broxtowe. So yeah, and then I did some library dates with him 2 years ago for the Poetry Festival, which was really nice, really nice. Yeah, nice bloke, and encourages people to get involved. So that's good. And of course, organises the Nottingham Poetry Festival as well.
Yeah, really, very much someone who's included as many people as he can in the Poetry Festival. It's great, been a great thing. Tell me a little bit about what made you said with Outside a Heart you'd not been writing for long. And then you mentioned in Salt Flow, one of the first poems you ever wrote was in there, and it wasn't in your first book. Tell me a bit about that sort of weird chronology or lack of chronology.
Oh, well, there was actually two. The one I referred to was about my granddad, because I didn't like him when he was alive, and then didn't have very happy memories of him. And then my great aunt died kind of a couple of decades after, and I got left his war Bible, which has got something written in the front that I often explain. If you ever your opinion turns on a sixpence, so to speak, then that was the moment for me, and so it just flowed from that. It just took a long while to get out, and a lot of editing, because it's one of my longer ones. It runs for about 3 minutes. But the other one in Salt Flow is Outside a Heart, which we put in the middle. It's one of those pinion poems that changes the kind of narrative flow of the book. And I didn't have the confidence to put it in. It's called Outside a Heart, and it was the title poem of the first collection, but I didn't have the confidence to put it in. And that was for two reasons. I tested it on stage and got mixed views. But the other one felt too raw, too personal, and too like I was exposing part of myself that maybe I wasn't ready for. So just didn't go in. But by the time we got to Salt Flow, I was much more comfortable with kind of revealing that part of myself, but also I kind of looked at the bits that people have reacted against and rewritten those and tested those out. And because part of it is angry poem about things that happened to me in the past. It was Sophie Sparham, poet, who I read it on stage in Derby, and she said, "Oh, I like you when you're angry." And that kind of cheered me up a bit, and gave me the confidence to just tinker with it. And as you know, I'm a terrible editor right up to the last minute, and so it just needed those little bits more of attention and fine detailed attention, and I'd learned how to do that. And oddly enough, because a bunch of Big White Shed poets went to Arvon last February 2019, was it? And for those who haven't been, you give 3 poems to one of the tutors and you get an hour's critique, and that was one I gave to Lou, who was one of the tutors. and she really loved it as well, and just taught me the thing about leaving things hanging at the end of a line. So I did that, and then I knew it was ready. As soon as I did my first draft, I thought, yeah, that's the final kind of bit of that was missing. So yeah, and it went.
It's interesting to listen to you talk, because you clearly aren't doing your poetry in isolation. It's very much about how it's received and the feedback you get and the peer review you get from it and your audience's response to it.
Yeah, I think I struggle to when I write, it's very concise and taught, and that works for me. But it took me a while to work out that doesn't work for other people. They need a bit more detail. They need a bit more linking words, to put it simplistically. So there's the Derby Crit Group, which is really good, really good quality poets who are very supportive, but got an eye for a good edit. Reading things at open mic, where most of the time there's not a lot of pressure. And trying to judge what people are thinking, and that peer review that you get through meeting other people and DIY poets is good, and other groups, and you just get a sense of what works, what doesn't work. That combination works for me, where I know other poets who bash out a draft, do a couple of edits, and it's good, and they just put it to one side. I can't do that. I'm always tinkering away at the nth degree, sometimes too much, and sometimes the more I tinker, the worse it gets. And that's when I need somebody else to tell me as well. That's why Big White Shed's good, because you do get that feedback from yourself. Yeah.
So it strikes me that poetry is about communicating what's going on inside your head then.
I think so. It's and that's why the collaborations have been good. But for myself, it gets things out. It does. I think in pictures and rhythms, and poetry seems to be a really good format for getting those things out, whether it's personal or political stuff. And like with the collaborations, there's a I've got that one here as well, in the refugee book from 2015-16, Over Land Over Sea, that 5 Leaves in Nottingham put together. I thought that was, I really like the poem I've got in there, which is about a parent and a child escaping being trafficked, but the hope, I was trying to emphasize the hope and the resilience. And then I did a collaboration with Elvia Roberts, who's another poet, but she's also a British Sign Language interpreter, and we did it as a kind of two-hander live, where she signed as I read. And we only had 2 run-throughs before, but she was asking me so many questions about why that word, because sign language is more about emotion than the way I think, which is literal. And I suddenly found out loads of things about things that I'd written that I never knew. And I really like that. I really like that kind of collaborative community approach where you get that kind of support and feedback.
Would you share another poem with us?
Yes, yeah. I never know what to. I'll do the one that we did for the Big White Shed on. Was it Not Stopping?
Oh, Not Stopping Festival.
Not Stopping Festival.
Yeah, do that.
Okay, bit of a tongue twister, but it is set in Nottingham, so it felt suitable. It's called The Loneliest Man in Slab Square. Sodium throws shadows on summer sands under the rings of Little John's peel, long after the left line has discharged its duties. Early evening drunks paddling dreams out to gin-ruined totter-shoed girls, and beach bar boys promenading under fountain lines. mingling across the slabs with those denied anywhere to go. Too early for a uniform move on to another nobody's next nowhere. Jean-shorted Best Band t-shirted Burger Kings hug as the Clifton 43 gives way to the ding-ding of the amber-jewelled Silito. Street cleaner go-karts begin to churn as taxi drivers check that they have enough wet wipes to manage a tirade-fueled slog through till 6 a.m. Advert corralled alfresco drinkers, VIPs at low-budget Fright Night pick up the tab and the pace, keen to be ready for the night's fray. Glazed wolf packs hunting down visions of lust, love, and God only knows what. Hear applause and wonder what they are missing out on now. Amidst all this, I see Batman penguin his way through the Bruegel melee, vying for tonight's unwanted tag of the loneliest man in the world. But as the first siren parts the night, he pulls aside his cape, takes out his phone from down his tights and answers, and as he does so, visibly straightens his shrinking soul. And that was actually, I was at speech therapy, which is a regular Nottingham open mic, sitting above Slab Square. And there was a bloke dressed as Batman amongst all that going on, who just looked miserable as sin. And then his phone rang, and literally, he just,
nice. Yeah. Really, really evocative. I think can really see it. Thanks, Trevor. It's been lovely having you in here, and I hope we can repeat this and have more conversations as time goes. Yeah, thank you very much. It's an absolute privilege having you in the shed, and exciting to have 2 books from you, and I hope there's more to come, unless you spread your wings and go elsewhere, but there's always room for you in the shed.
Lovely. No, that's nice to know. Yeah. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks, Trev. Good to see you.
Okay.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.